The metallic scrape of the mop bucket wheels echoed through the empty Fort Bragg cafeteria at 0600 hours, cutting through the pre-dawn silence like a blade. Jordan Rivas pushed the yellow industrial bucket across tile floors she'd cleaned 100 times before, her movements methodical, precise, mechanical. 3 months, 90 days since her discharge from Walter Reed. 90 days of pushing mops instead of mission parameters. She was 32 years old, 5'5", 138 pounds. The burn scars on her left forearm caught the fluorescent light as she wrung out the mop head, twisted tissue that stretched from wrist to elbow. More scars hid beneath her gray custodial uniform. The cheap fabric hung loose on a frame that had once carried pure muscle. 15 pounds lost to hospital beds and inactivity. Her brown contact lenses made her green eyes disappear. Hair grown out to shoulder length, no longer the severe operator's cut. Everything calculated to make Captain Jordan Mackenzie Rivas vanish into the woman the ID badge identified as J. Reeves, Facilities Maintenance. The cafeteria doors burst open at 0615. Colonel Raymond Voss entered with his usual entourage, 6 officers trailing behind him like ducklings following a particularly loud mother duck. Voss was 48, 6'1", 205 pounds of desk officer softness wrapped in an expensive custom uniform. His graying blonde hair sat in perfect regulation position. Cold blue eyes swept the cafeteria with the dismissive gaze of a man who'd spent 25 years climbing ranks through politics instead of competence. Jordan didn't look up. She'd learned that invisibility was a survival skill in this new life. Voss's boot hit her bucket deliberately as he passed. Dirty mop water exploded across the floor Jordan had just finished cleaning. The splash reached her pants, soaked through to skin. "Watch where you're working, sweetheart." Voss's voice carried across the cafeteria, loud enough to reach the 40-plus SFQC candidates and instructors filtering in for pre-briefing breakfast. This is a military installation, not a truck stop. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Phone cameras lifted. Jordan could feel the recording starting. Digital eyes multiplying her humiliation across social media platforms she'd never see. She said nothing, just knelt and began re-mopping the spilled water. Her hands gripped the handle, lean with knuckles going white, elbows at 45-degree angles, weight distributed like she was holding something heavier than wood and cotton. Master Sergeant Leon Drake noticed from his position near the coffee station. 42 years old, 6 feet tall, 195 pounds of weathered Special Forces veteran. 20 years in, multiple deployments. The kind of soldier who saw details others missed. He watched Jordan's posture and felt something click wrong in his brain. That wasn't how a janitor held a mop. That was a shooter's stance. Voss circled back, drawn by the audience like a shark to blood. He leaned down, his voice dropping to mock concern. "What happened there?" He pointed at the burns on Jordan's forearm. "Bad cooking accident? Let me guess, tried to make breakfast for a boyfriend who left anyway?" Captain Brett Holloway laughed too loud at that. 35 years old, 6'3", 220 pounds of Ranger-qualified muscle and empty ambition. "Probably why she's cleaning our floors, sir. Can't handle real work." Lieutenant Travis McCrae joined in. 28, 5'11", 185 pounds, West Point fresh and desperate to impress. "Should we get her some oven mitts, Colonel? Safety first." The candidates roared. Jordan kept cleaning. Her jaw muscles clenched once, just once, then smooth again. Blank face, empty eyes. The muscle memory of someone who'd learned to take pain without showing it. Private First Class Amy Nakamura watched from her position in formation. 22 years old, 5'2", 115 pounds, one of only 2 women in the current SFQC pipeline. Her face twisted with discomfort. She started to step forward. "Nakamura!" Her drill sergeant's bark stopped her cold. "Fall back in formation. Stop eyeballing staff." Nakamura retreated, But her eyes stayed on Jordan, on the way the custodian moved. There was something there, something underneath the civilian clothes and submissive body language. Drake moved closer, casually, getting a better angle. He saw things now that bothered him. The worn Solomon hiking boots Jordan wore, popular with special operations personnel, uncommon for minimum wage workers. The faded tan line on her right ring finger, positioned exactly where a shooting glove would sit during thousands of hours on ranges. A small tattoo barely visible above her collar. Looked like numbers, maybe a date. Jordan finished. She finished cleaning the spill in silence. She pushed the bucket toward the storage closet, moving along the wall, instinctively checking corners and exits. Tactical awareness bleeding through her disguise. Voss wasn't done. He dumped his coffee grounds on the freshly cleaned floor as he headed toward the briefing room. The wet grounds splattered across tile in a dark stain. Clean that up, too. He didn't look back. And smile more. You're in customer service. 43 people filmed it. 43 phones capturing the moment for likes and shares and the casual cruelty of internet entertainment. Jordan knelt again, retrieved her cleaning supplies, started over. Drake caught the eye of another instructor, Sergeant First Class William Torres. Both men had been in long enough to recognize something off. Torres raised an eyebrow in question. Drake shook his head slightly. Not yet. But something was wrong here. Something they couldn't name. The overhead speakers crackled to life. All personnel report to Shooting Range Tromplex 4 for qualification demonstrations. 0700 hours. Mandatory attendance for SFQC candidates and instructors. Voss's voice carried back from the doorway. You hear that, sweetheart? The real soldiers are going to go shoot guns. You just keep making things pretty for us. More laughter. The crowd filtered out, already forgetting the janitor on her knees scrubbing coffee grounds, already moving on to the next entertainment. Jordan stayed kneeling for 30 seconds after they left. Her hands shook slightly as she wrung out the mop. Not from fear, from suppressed rage that had nowhere to go. Rage at Voss. Rage at herself for being here. Rage at the IED that had killed Thompson, Martinez, and Kowalski. Rage at surviving when they hadn't. She stood slowly. Her back protested. The hardware in her L4-L5 vertebrae grinding like broken machinery. She breathed through it. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Combat breathing. The kind that keeps you functional when your body wants to scream. Drake lingered near the coffee station, pretending to refill his cup. He watched Jordan push the bucket toward storage, watched the slight limp she affected. But underneath the limp, her weight distribution was perfect, balanced like someone who'd spent years moving through hostile territory. He pulled out his phone, typed a message. To Torres. Something about that custodian. Can't place it. You see how she moves? Torres replied seconds later. Yeah, seen that before. Downrange. Drake stared at Jordan's retreating back, at the scars visible on her neck, burn patterns he'd seen in vehicle fires, in places with names like Mosul and Kandahar and Helmand. He filed it away. Probably nothing. Probably just a veteran trying to make ends meet after service. Lots of them took whatever work they could find. But the way she'd gripped that mop handle, that bothered him. Jordan stored the cleaning supplies and checked the assignment board. Range Complex 4, outdoor facilities and equipment cleaning between qualification drills. Of course. Back into Voss's territory. Back into the spotlight she'd spent 3 months avoiding. She touched the small tattoo on her neck. Coordinates that nobody had looked at closely enough to recognize. 33.315 degrees north, 44.366 degrees east. Baghdad, where it started, where she'd proven herself in a world that didn't want women in the fight. The scars on her arm ached, phantom pain from nerve damage, or maybe just memory. The smell of burning diesel and plastique, Thompson screaming, Martinez silent because his lungs were gone. Kowalski's face in the second before the secondary explosion. She closed her eyes, pushed it down, locked it away in the box where she kept everything that would break her if she looked at it too long. 0700 hours approached. Time to go clean toilets while soldiers play war games. Time to be invisible again. She didn't know that in 73 minutes, everything would shatter. That Colonel Raymond Voss would make a mistake that would end his career. That the world would see exactly who Jay Reeves really was. Jordan walked toward Range Complex 4 as the sun broke over Fort Bragg. Another day of humiliation ahead. Another day of surviving. She'd gotten good at surviving, even when part of her wished she hadn't. Range Complex 4 sprawled across 12 acres of Fort Bragg real estate. Multiple firing lanes, steel targets at varying distances, outdoor equipment sheds that needed constant maintenance. Jordan arrived at 06:55 hours, 5 minutes early, carrying her cleaning caddy like a shield. 60-plus personnel already gathered. SFQC candidates in formation. Instructors checking equipment. Officers observing from shaded areas. Colonel Voss stood near the armory window, coffee in hand, holding court with Holloway and McCrae. Their laughter carried across the morning air. Jordan kept her head down, moved toward the equipment shed. Her assignment was simple: organize ammunition cans, clean brass catchers, stay invisible. She made it 7 minutes before Lieutenant McCrae found her. "Hey, cleanin' lady." He approached with the swagger of someone who'd never been punched in the mouth by consequences. "You know what these are?" He pointed at the ammunition cans Jordan was stacking. "Probably thinks they're soup cans." Holloway materialized beside him, drawn by the opportunity to impress Voss. "Careful, LT. These are dangerous weapons, not Swiffer dusters." He knocked over one of the cans Jordan had organized. 9mm rounds scattered across concrete. Jordan bent to collect them without speaking. Her hands moved efficiently, checking each round for damage with practiced precision. Primer intact, case undented. She sorted them faster than most armorers could. McCrae noticed. Maybe she's done this before. Probably worked at a gun range, handed magazines to real shooters. Drake watched from the firing line 20 yards away. Something about her movements again. The way she handled ammunition. Checking for defects without thinking about it. Muscle memory that went beyond casual familiarity. The morning qualifications began. Instructors demonstrating proper technique for candidates. M4 carbines barking in controlled pairs. Brass ejecting in golden arcs. Jordan continued working, cleaning equipment between firing sessions, trying to disappear into the background noise of military routine. Then Sergeant Wallace fumbled. Demonstrating a magazine change, he dropped the mag. It bounced off his boot, tumbled toward the observation area, where candidates stood 3 feet from the firing line. Jordan's hand shot out, caught the magazine mid-air without looking. Her grip was perfect. Bullets facing the correct direction, feed lips undamaged. She'd snatched it from its trajectory with the reflexes of someone who'd done this 1,000 times under stress. The range went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Jordan realized her mistake immediately. She set the magazine down carefully on the shooting bench, returned to organizing cleaning supplies. Face neutral, heart hammering. Voss broke the silence with forced laughter. "Lucky catch. Probably saw it in a movie." McCrae joined in, relieved to have the tension broken. "My girlfriend could have caught that. Doesn't mean she can shoot." But Drake wasn't laughing. He stared at Jordan with new intensity. That wasn't luck. That was a combat reload catch. He'd seen Delta operators do exactly that during live-fire drills. Reflexes honed by thousands of repetitions under pressure. Holloway approached Jordan's cleaning station. She was kneeling, organizing solvent bottles and cleaning rods. He stood too close. Deliberate intimidation. "You know, sweetheart, you're in the way here." He shifted his weight. His boot caught the edge of her cleaning caddy. Chemical solvent splashed across concrete, the sharp smell of hops number 9 filling the air. Some splattered near her scarred forearm. Jordan didn't flinch. The solvent burned like fire on damaged nerve endings, but her face showed nothing. She'd learned pain management in places where showing weakness meant death. "Oops," Holloway's tone carried mock apology. "Better clean that up before someone reports unsafe working conditions." Jordan cleaned in silence. Paper towels soaking up solvent. Hands steady despite the chemical burn. Around her, qualifications continued. Instructors explaining malfunction drills, demonstrating immediate action procedures. One instructor was explaining a failure to feed issue on his M4. "See how the bolt isn't fully forward? That's your indicator of—" "Not feed issue." Jordan's voice was barely audible. She muttered it under her breath while wiping up solvent. "Extractor spring tension, pins worn." Drake was close enough to hear. He moved to the instructor's rifle, examined the bolt face, removed the extractor. The spring was indeed weak. The retaining pin showed wear exactly where Jordan had indicated. He turned to her. "How did you—" Jordan walked away before he finished the question, moved to the far end of the range, put distance between herself and the curiosity in Drake's eyes. Private First Class Nakamura had been watching the entire interaction. She approached Jordan hesitantly, carrying paper towels. "Ma'am, miss, that wasn't right what they did." Jordan accepted the towels without speaking. Nakamura lingered, wanting to say more. "Nakamura!" Her sergeant's voice cracked like a whip. "Fall back in formation! Stop fraternizing with staff!" The young soldier retreated, casting one last look at Jordan, apology written across her face. Drake approached Voss during a lull in firing. "Sir, respectfully, I think there's something you should know about." Voss cut him off without looking away from his coffee. "Unless she's hiding a bomb in that mop bucket, I don't care, Sergeant. Get back to your station." Drake hesitated. 20 years in the Army had taught him when to push and when to hold. He returned to the firing line, but kept Jordan in his peripheral vision. Something was building here, something that felt like the moment before contact, when the air changes and veterans know violence is coming. The morning demonstration wrapped up. Candidates performed adequately. Instructors critiqued technique. Voss basked in the authority of having everyone's attention. Then he noticed Jordan again, still cleaning, still present, still existing in his space. An idea formed behind his cold blue eyes, the kind of idea that mean men have when they confuse cruelty with entertainment. "Attention on deck!" Voss's command voice silenced the range. 60+ people turned. "I think we need a volunteer for an impromptu demonstration. Something to remind these candidates what expert marksmanship looks like." His gaze locked on Jordan. "How about you, sweetheart? Ever fired a gun or just cleaned them?" The question landed like artillery. Phones came out. Candidates smiled, anticipating entertainment. Holloway grinned. McCrae positioned himself for the best camera angle. Drake's stomach dropped. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Jordan stopped cleaning. She stood, slowly, carefully, her back protesting the movement. Turned to face Voss directly for the first time since the cafeteria. Her brown contact lenses hid the green fire underneath, but her voice came out level, controlled, neutral. "What's the course of fire, sir?" The "sir" wasn't civilian deference. It was the way a subordinate addresses a superior officer. Drake caught it immediately. That tone, that cadence. He'd heard it 10,000 times from soldiers who knew exactly how military courtesy worked. Voss smiled. He thought he'd won. Well, well, the janitor has a spine. He had no idea what he'd just started. Before we see what happens next, I need to ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated? Judged by your appearance instead of your abilities? What you're about to witness is what happens when people realize they've made a terrible mistake. The next few minutes will change everything on that range. Everything Voss thinks he knows about the woman holding that mop is about to be shattered. And 60 witnesses are about to learn a lesson about assumptions they'll never forget. Voss's smile widened as he set the parameters. 50 meters, rapid fire, M4 carbine, iron sights only, 10 rounds, 10 seconds, head-size targets. He paused for effect. That's the Special Forces standard. You'll be lucky to hit the dirt. Holloway leaned toward McCrae. That's insane. Even instructors struggle with that time. The crowd murmured agreement. Phones lifted higher. Someone started a live stream. Within seconds, viewers multiplied. Local entertainment spreading across social media like wildfire. Drake stood rigid at the firing line. He wanted to intervene, wanted to stop this, but Voss outranked him. All he could do was watch. McCrae walked to the armory, selected a rifle with theatrical care. M4 carbine with a misaligned front sight post, worn buffer spring. He'd grabbed it deliberately, the weapon that always malfunctioned during qualifications, the one they kept meaning to send to depot maintenance. He handed it to Jordan with a smirk. "Here's your weapon, ma'am. Safety's on the left, trigger's the curvy thing." Jordan accepted the rifle. Her hands moved through immediate functions check without hesitation. Press check, bolt catch, magazine well inspection, charging handle pull. Her fingers found the misaligned sight post within 3 seconds. She adjusted nothing, said nothing, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Drake saw the check. That wasn't beginner curiosity. That was operator-level weapons familiarity. His pulse quickened. Word spreading, one candidate whispered to another. "Jackson just texted from the barracks. Everyone's watching the stream." The crowd swelled. 80 personnel now, off-duty soldiers drawn by the spectacle. Betting started in hushed voices. $20 she doesn't hit a single target. 50 says she drops the rifle. 100 says Voss is a jackass. That last one got nervous laughter. Range personnel set up 10 steel silhouettes. It's downrange. Head-sized plates at 50 meters. Wind picked up from the left. 8 miles per hour crosswind. Difficult conditions for even experienced shooters. Jordan removed her custodial overshirt. Beneath it, a plain gray t-shirt clung to a frame that still carried muscle memory despite months of inactivity. The burn scars on her left shoulder became fully visible now. Shrapnel scars dotted her right bicep. Puckered tissue that spoke of violence survived. Several people in the crowd went quiet. Those scars weren't from cooking accidents. Jordan stretched her neck side to side. Vertebrae cracked audibly. The sound of old injuries and internal hardware settling. She rolled her shoulders. Pain flashed across her face for a microsecond before the mask returned. Drake noticed her breathing pattern. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Combat breathing. They taught that in Ranger School, in Special Forces selection, in places where managing stress meant staying alive. "Whenever you're ready, sweetheart." Voss's voice dripped condescension. "Unless you want to quit now and save yourself the embarrassment." Jordan stepped to the firing line, assumed her stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, weight slightly forward, elbows tucked. The rifle came up smoothly, settling into the pocket of her shoulder like it had lived there. Her cheek weld was perfect. Support hand position, textbook. Torres, standing next to Drake, inhaled sharply. "That's not civilian form." Drake nodded slowly. "No, it's not." The range officer, Master Sergeant Willis, approached with the timer. 49 years old, veteran of 3 deployments. He'd seen thousands of shooters. Something about this woman's stance made him pause. "Ma'am, you understand the drill? 10 shots, 10 seconds, engage all targets?" "Yes, Sergeant." Jordan's voice was steady, empty, like she'd done this before. Willis positioned himself behind her with the timer. "Shoot her ready?" Jordan's response was a barely perceptible nod. 3, 2, 1, engage. The electronic beep coincided with Jordan's first shot. The sound was different than what came before. No hesitation, no flinch. Smooth, controlled double taps that rang across the range with mechanical precision. Her muzzle transitioned between targets with minimal movement. Brass ejected in perfect arcs, landing in a neat pile to her right. Aight. No wasted motion, no overcorrection, just rhythmic violence delivered with surgical efficiency. The 10 steel plates sang as rounds impacted center mass. Headshots, every single one. The timer's second beep cut through ringing ears. Willis stared at the display. 9.7 seconds. Silence fell over Range Complex 4 like a physical weight. 80-plus people stopped breathing simultaneously. Drake's voice cut through the quiet, professional and measured. Special Forces standard is 12 seconds. DevGru average is 10.2. She'd beaten Navy SEAL standards by half a second. Voss's face transitioned through several emotions. Shock, confusion, anger rising like mercury in a thermometer. Luck, wind-assisted. Targets were too close. Holloway's voice lacked its earlier confidence. Probably trained at some civilian range, took classes or something. McCrae said nothing. He was staring at the rifle in Jordan's hands, the one he'd deliberately sabotaged. She'd shot expert qualification with a weapon that shouldn't have functioned properly. Willis walked downrange with a spotting scope. He examined each target carefully. When he returned, his voice carried respect that hadn't been there before. "Sir, all hits are within 2-inch groups. Several are same-hole shots." He paused. "With iron sights, in an 8-mile-per-hour crosswind." Someone in the crowd whispered, "Holy shit!" Voss's face flushed red, authority slipping through his fingers like water. He needed to regain control, needed to prove this was luck. "Fine, let's try something that can't be faked." He ordered range personnel to prepare the shoot house. The close-quarters battle training structure sat 200 yards across the complex. 3 rooms, hostage targets mixed with threat targets, live fire room clearing. Drake stepped forward. "Sir, that's a qualified operator drill. If she's not trained, someone could get hurt." Voss rounded on him. "Then she shouldn't have volunteered, Sergeant. Or are you questioning my authority?" Drake's jaw muscles worked. "No, sir." "Then shut up and let her fail." The group moved to the shoot house. 10-minute walk that felt like a death march. Jordan walked in silence, returning the M4 to the armorer. She requested a different weapon. M4 with optic, fresh magazine, flashlight mounted. The armorer looked to Voss for RAS permission. Voss waved dismissively. "Give her whatever she wants. Won't make a difference." As Jordan performed functions check on the new rifle, her t-shirt sleeve rode up. Nakamura, standing close enough to see clearly, spotted the tattoo. Coordinates: 33.3152 degrees north, 44.366 degrees east. Below the numbers, a small skull with a lightning bolt through it. Nakamura's eyes went wide. She knew that symbol. Everyone in Special Operations knew that symbol. It was the insignia of 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, the unit that didn't officially exist, the unit that produced the most elite soldiers in the United States military. She looked around frantically to see if anyone else had noticed. No one had. They were all focused on the shoot house, on the spectacle, on the woman they thought was about to humiliate herself. Jordan stood at the entry point. The shoot house loomed before her. 3 rooms of close-quarters hell. Voss positioned himself where everyone could hear him. "When she fails this, I want everyone to remember something. This is why we have standards. Not everyone is cut out for this work, no matter how much they pretend." Jordan pulled the charging handle, chambered around. Her eyes went empty, muscle memory taking over. Something fundamental shifted in her posture. The janitor disappeared. Someone else emerged. Someone harder. Someone forged in places with names like Mosul and Ramadi and Fallujah. Willis positioned himself with the timer. "Ma'am, standard doctrine is 45 seconds with 90% accuracy. Anything under a minute is considered." "I know the standard, Sergeant." Jordan's voice had changed, colder, flatter. The voice of someone who'd done this for real, where mistakes meant body bags. She faced the door. 73 people watched in person. 418 watched via live stream. All of them waiting for failure. None of them ready for what happened next. The electronic beep started the clock. Jordan disappeared into the shoothouse structure. Through the observation windows, the crowd watched her move through 3 rooms like water flowing downhill. She sliced corners with practiced efficiency, weapon up, muzzle tracking her eyeline. First room, 2 threat targets. Double tap center mass on each. Immediate transition. Second room, 1 hostage target kneeling. 2 threats. Threats behind cover. She bypassed the hostage without hesitation, engaged both threats with controlled pairs. Third room, mixed scenario. 3 targets in rapid sequence. Her footwork was flawless, angular approaches, economy of motion, no wasted energy. She emerged from the final door. The timer beeped. Willis stared at the display like it had personally offended him. 31.4 seconds. The silence that followed was different than before. This wasn't surprise. This was recognition. The instructors and experienced NCOs in the crowd knew what they'd just witnessed. That wasn't Special Forces technique. That was Combat Applications Group doctrine. The kind of room clearing taught in a specific place, to a specific type of soldier. Drake turned to Torres, his voice barely audible. That wasn't SF. That was CAG. I've only seen that once. Mosul, 2016, watching Delta operators work a compound. Torres's face had gone pale. CAG doesn't recruit women for... He stopped mid-sentence, stared at Jordan. Holy Mary, Mother of God. Range personnel examined the targets. All 6 threats, center mass double taps. All 3 hostages, untouched. 0 safety violations. The groupings were tight enough to stack quarters in. Voss's voice came out strained. Anyone can memorize room patterns. Real operators know their weapons. Desperation leaked through his words. He was drowning and he knew it. Holloway tried to throw him a lifeline. Yeah, field strip test, blindfolded. That's real knowledge. Jordan stood silent, weapon at low ready, waiting. Her breathing was slightly elevated but controlled. She hadn't broken a sweat. Voss seized the idea like a drowning man grabbing debris. Exactly. Field strip and reassemble, blindfolded. He paused, inspiration striking. Do it with 3 weapons, simultaneously. Scar H, M4, and M249 SAW. Different systems. Let's see her handle that. Drake stepped forward again. Sir, that's 3 completely different platforms. That's not fair. I said quiet, Sergeant. That's an order. Personnel brought the 3 weapons, laid them on a mat. Jordan knelt cross-legged in front of them. Someone produced a blindfold. Willis applied it himself, checking to ensure it was opaque. Ma'am, can you see anything? No, Sergeant. Proceed when ready. Jordan's hands moved to the first weapon, M4 carbine. Her fingers traced. The receivers like reading Braille. Takedown pins released. Upper separated from lower. Bolt carrier group extracted. Charging handle removed. Parts laid in organized sequence. She moved to the Scar H without pause. Different system, different manual of arms. Gas system disengaged. Barrel removed. Components arranged in spatial memory grid. Then the M249. Belt-fed system requiring different knowledge entirely. Feed tray opened. Gas regulator adjusted. Barrel assembly extracted. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Even the live stream viewers stopped commenting. 3 weapons disassembled in under 2 minutes. Parts laid out with precision that suggested she could see through the blindfold. Then the reassembly. Her hands moved with mechanical certainty. No hesitation, no fumbling. Every component returned to its proper place. Springs, pins, bolts, gas systems. She worked all 3 weapons simultaneously, moving between them in rotation. 4 minutes 12 seconds after starting, she performed functions checks on all 3. Charging handles cycled, triggers pressed, safeties engaged. Willis removed the blindfold, inspected each weapon. His face showed something approaching awe. All 3 weapons fully operational and properly assembled. Drake whispered to Torres again. "That's armorer-level knowledge. How does a janitor?" One of the range instructors noticed something during inspection. "Wait, this scar has a modified extractor pin. Where did she learn that?" He looked at Jordan. "Ma'am, that's a JSOC-specific upgrade. It's not in standard manuals. Where did you—" Jordan's expression flickered, just for a microsecond. Recognition that she'd revealed too much. She said nothing. The silence was answer enough. 3 instructors with Ranger tabs and Special Forces patches conferring in hushed voices. "Did you see her foot placement during the shoot house? 45-degree offset, aggressive forward lean. That's counter-ambush posture. And the way she scanned after shooting, IED awareness check, she's done route clearance." One of them grabbed Drake's arm. "Check her hands." Drake moved closer. Jordan's hands showed specific callus patterns. Rope burns from fast roping. Pistol grip wear on the right palm. Trigger finger callus that came from thousands of rounds fired. These weren't gym calluses. These were operational scars. Voss was as losing control completely now. His voice rose to compensate. "I don't care about tricks and muscle memory. Any contractor could learn this stuff." He pointed at her burn scars, his face twisted with desperation. "Those burns? Probably from a meth lab explosion. I've seen stolen valor before." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. This had crossed a line. Even the candidates who'd laughed earlier looked disturbed. Accusing someone of stolen valor was serious. Doing it without evidence was worse. Holloway put a hand on Voss's shoulder. "Sir, maybe we should—" Voss shook him off. "No, I'm not done here." Jordan turned to retrieve her overshirt from the bench. As she reached, her t-shirt lifted slightly and back. Nakamura was close enough to see. A large surgical scar crossed Jordan's lower back. Entry and exit wound patterns. The unmistakable signature of shrapnel injury. And something else. The subtle glint of internal hardware. Spinal fusion implants. Nakamura gasped audibly. Several others heard it, turned to look, saw what she'd seen. Someone in the crowd spoke quietly. "Holy shit! Those are combat wounds." Another voice. "That's not from a car accident. That's from fragmentation." The murmur spread, understanding rippling through the gathered personnel like a shockwave. The scars told a story. A violent story. A story that didn't match the narrative of a minimum wage custodian. Voss heard the whispers. Panic colored his response. Could be anything. Domestic abuse, gang violence, industrial accident? When he said gang violence, Jordan's jaw clenched visibly. Her hands formed fists at her sides. For the first time since this began, emotion showed on her face. Cold fury barely leashed. She turned to face Voss directly. "You want one more demonstration, sir?" Her voice had dropped 20 degrees. Ice formed on each syllable. The temperature of the entire range dropped with it. Experienced soldiers recognized that tone, the sound of someone who'd killed before, who could kill again, who was deciding right now whether violence was warranted. Voss sensed something wrong, some primal part of his brain screaming danger, but pride and audience and career desperation pushed him forward. "Yes, hand-to-hand combat. Let's see if you can fight or just shoot." Drake grabbed Willis's arm. "We need to stop this." Willis shook his head slowly. Too late. "Look at her eyes." Jordan set her rifle down carefully, removed her cheap Kasia watch, set it aside. Drake noticed the tan line beneath it, wider than the watch face, like she'd worn something bigger, something tactical. She'd changed watches deliberately, camouflage. Jordan rolled her shoulders. The movement clearly caused pain, hardware grinding in her spine. But she'd done this before, fought through worse injuries in worse places. Voss designated Holloway. "Captain, show this civilian what military combatives look like." Holloway stepped forward with visible reluctance. The earlier confidence was gone. He was 6'3", 220 pounds. Jordan was 5'5", 138 pounds. The visual contrast was stark. David and Goliath. Except this time, maybe David had more than a sling. They stood on the training mat, circled each other. Holloway's voice carried genuine concern now. "Ma'am, I'll take it easy on—" "Don't." Jordan's response was immediate, final. "Before we see what happens next, stop. Rewind that last moment. Did you catch her face? That wasn't anger. That was the look of someone who's buried friends. Someone who's been places we can't imagine. What happens in the next 60 seconds will break the internet, because Captain Brett Holloway is about to learn a lesson about underestimating opponents, and Colonel Voss is about to discover he's made the worst mistake of his career." Holloway threw a testing jab. Jordan slipped it with minimal head movement, the kind of defensive efficiency that came from thousands of sparring hours. He reset, circled left, shot for a takedown. Standard wrestling entry. Jordan sprawled perfectly, hips back, weight distributed, and immediately transitioned to a rear position. Her arm snaked toward his neck for a rear naked choke, but she stopped, released, stepped back. They separated. Holloway was breathing hard. Jordan hadn't broken a sweat. Her face remained empty, mechanical, like she was running through drills she'd done 10,000 times. Holloway tried again. This time he committed, full-power double-leg takedown. Jordan used his momentum against him, executed a textbook judo hip throw that sent 220 pounds of Ranger-qualified infantry officer slamming into the mat. She controlled his arm in a submission position, joint lock applied with surgical precision. Her knee pressed into his shoulder. One more inch of pressure, and his elbow would hyperextend. Snap. Career over. She held him there for 3 seconds, long enough to prove the point, then released and stepped back. Holloway sat on the mat rubbing his shoulder. The joint lock had been perfect. He'd felt that level of technical precision exactly once before, from a SEAL Team 6 instructor at Advanced Combatives course. His face showed confusion now, not mockery, genuine bewilderment about who this woman actually was. Jordan turned away, clearly done. But the sound of vehicles interrupted. 3 black SUVs rolled into the range complex. Government plates, tinted windows. The kind of vehicles that carried people who made colonels nervous. "General on deck." Someone spotted the plates first. The entire range snapped to attention. 80-plus personnel standing rigid as the vehicle stopped. Major General Patricia Hendricks emerged from the lead SUV. 54 years old, 5'7", 160 pounds of career soldier. Steel gray hair in a tight bun. Dark brown eyes that had seen 3 decades of military operations. 3 visible scars on her right hand from shrapnel she'd taken in Fallujah. She wore combat fatigues with enough ribbons to tell a story of violence survived and objectives achieved. Her aide and security detail followed. MPs in full kit. This wasn't a casual visit. Voss's face went through rapid calculations. Hendricks wasn't supposed to be here until next week. Her inspection schedule had her visiting Fort Benning today. Something had changed. Hendricks surveyed the scene with practiced efficiency. Combat mat, Holloway on the ground. Jordan in civilian clothes standing at a fighting stance. 80 personnel with phones out. The air thick with tension that even she could feel from 50 feet away. Colonel Voss. Her voice carried command authority that made Voss's earlier posturing look like a child playing dress-up. Explain. Now. Why are 80-plus personnel crowded around a training mat instead of conducting scheduled qualifications? Voss scrambled. "Ma'am, we weren't expecting you until—" "I'm aware of my schedule, Colonel. Answer the question." Voss's mouth worked. "General, we were conducting an impromptu demonstration when this civilian employee began interfering with training protocols." Hendrix's eyes narrowed. Civilian employee was interfering. Or you were harassing civilian employee? Holloway, still on the mat, spoke without thinking. "General, there was a challenge, and she—" He gestured helplessly at the equipment around them. The rifles, the shoot house, the evidence of what had just happened. Hendrix walked slowly toward Jordan. Her eyes took in details, the burn scars, the shrapnel marks, the way Jordan stood at rest position with unconscious military bearing, the cheap Casio watch with its revealing tan line. You, civilian employee, name and purpose on this range. Jordan's posture straightened fractionally. "Jordan Reeves, ma'am, facilities maintenance." Hendrix studied her for a long moment. Something flickered in the general's eyes. Recognition? Suspicion? "Where did you learn to fight like that, Miss Reeves?" "Personal training, ma'am." "Personal training?" Hendrix repeated the words like tasting wine. Testing for lies. "Right." She turned to her aide. "Lieutenant, pull her background check and security clearance status immediately." The aide pulled out a tablet, fingers flying across the screen. 30 seconds of typing. Then his face changed. Confusion? Concern. "General, this is unusual. She has base access credentials, but her file shows employment gaps. Previous employer listed as Department of Defense contractor, classified." Hendrix took the tablet, read carefully. Classified contractor? What kind? The aide leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. "It won't specify, ma'am. Just says refer to JSOC Personnel Command for details." He scrolled further. "She has a CAC card override code, level 5 compartmented access." The experienced personnel in the crowd went rigid. Level 5 access was reserved for personnel involved in the most sensitive operations. JSOC contractors with that clearance weren't janitors. They were operators, enablers, people who did work that never made it into official reports. Drake and Torres exchanged looks. Torres mouthed one word: "Fuck." Voss saw an opportunity, grasping for anything to shift blame away from himself. "General, I suspected something was wrong. I believe this woman may be falsifying credentials, possibly a stolen valor situation." McCrae jumped in. "She knew weapons modifications that aren't in public manuals, ma'am, could be espionage." Holloway, climbing to his feet, spoke quietly. "Sir, with respect, she also just saved me from a broken arm. She had me cold and let go." He rubbed his shoulder. "That's not how criminals operate." Voss turned on him. "Whose side are you on, Captain?" Hendrix's voice cut through the argument like a blade. "Everyone shut up." Silence fell instantly. "Miss Reeves, I'm giving you a direct order under military authority granted to me by Installation Command. Explain your background and training, now." Jordan met her eyes. "Ma'am, with respect, I'm not authorized to discuss my previous employment without proper security clearance confirmation and legal counsel present." "Not authorized? By whose authority?" "SOCOM Personnel Regulations, ma'am, Section 3.14, subsection C. I signed non-disclosure agreements that remain in effect for 5 years post-separation." Hendrix studied Jordan with new intensity. "You can cite SOCOM regulations by section and subsection? Interesting." She turned to her aide. "Lieutenant, contact JSOC Personnel Command directly. Use my authorization code. I want this woman's full service record in the next 5 minutes." The aide hesitated. "Ma'am, if she's JSOC, those records are—" "I know exactly what they are. Make the call." While the aide stepped away with his phone, Hendrix walked around Jordan slowly, examining her like a puzzle. She noticed the surgical scar visible at Jordan's collar line, the way Jordan's weight distribution favored her right side, protecting an injury on the left, the 1,000-yard stare that came from seeing things civilians couldn't imagine. "Those scars on your arm, what caused them?" "Burn injury, ma'am." From what? Vehicle fire. What kind of vehicle? Jordan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'd rather not say, ma'am. Hendricks stopped in front of her. Would rather not or not authorized to? Both, ma'am. The aide's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. He covered the phone. General, JSOC Operations Desk is asking for verification of who's requesting the file and why. They say it's flagged for medical privacy under HIPAA. They need her consent or what, Lieutenant? Or a direct order from SOCOM Commander, ma'am. The crowd murmured. Why would a janitor's file require SOCOM Commander authorization? That level of protection was reserved for operators in active status or recently retired, from units that didn't officially exist. Hendricks took the phone, walked 20 feet away for privacy. Her conversation was visible but not audible. Those close enough saw her body language change, stiffen. She turned to look at Jordan. Hand went to her mouth. The conversation lasted 90 seconds that felt like hours. She handed the phone back to her aide, stood still for a moment, processing, making decisions. When she turned back to the group, her voice carried a tone no one had heard before, not anger, something closer to reverence. Everyone except senior NCOs and officers dismissed immediately. Confusion rippled through the crowd, but military discipline overrode curiosity. The candidates and junior enlisted filtered away. 60 people reduced to 15. Only Hendricks, her aide, Voss, Holloway, McCrae, Drake, Torres, Willis, and 3 other senior instructors remained, and Nakamura, forgotten in formation, too terrified to move. Hendricks stared at Jordan. Captain Reeves, I need you to confirm your identity for the record. The use of rank froze everyone. Captain, not miss, not ma'am. Captain. Jordan closed her eyes. Ma'am, I'm not active duty anymore. I didn't ask your duty status, Captain. I asked you to confirm your identity. Jordan stood silent for 5 seconds, internal struggle playing across her face. The mask she'd worn for 3 months cracking. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady despite the weight of the words. Captain Jordan McIntyre Reeves. Serial number 285-647392. Formerly assigned to 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, Combat Applications Group, medically retired 8 months ago. The words landed like artillery shells. Drake's face went pale. Oh my God. Voss's complexion turned gray, all blood draining from his face in 1 second. Holloway stepped backward involuntarily, nearly tripping over his own feet. McCrae looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. Torres made the sign of the cross. Hendricks let the silence sit for a moment, let it suffocate everyone who'd laughed, everyone who'd filmed, everyone who'd mocked. Then she spoke, her voice carrying across the range with absolute authority. For those who don't understand what she just said, Delta Force, CAG, is the Army's Tier 1 Special Missions Unit. There are approximately 250 operators in the entire organization. 12 are women. She paused, looked at Voss specifically. You've been mocking one of the most elite soldiers in the United States military, Colonel. Voss tried to speak. His mouth opened, closed. No words came out. Hendricks pulled up information on her aide's tablet. Captain Reeves's file is heavily redacted, but what I can share? 12 years of service, 4 combat deployments, 2 Bronze Stars with Valor Device, 1 Silver Star, Purple Heart with 2 Gold Stars indicating this was her 3rd award. Drake's voice cracked slightly. 3 Purple Hearts means wounded in action 3 separate times? 4 times, Hendricks corrected. The last one isn't officially documented yet due to classification issues with the operation. She read from the tablet. Participated in Operation Inherent Resolve, Operation Freedom Sentinel, and multiple task force operations I cannot name in this setting. Willis removed his cover, held it over his heart. Others followed. Even Voss, operating on autopilot, removed his patrol cap. Hendricks continued. "Captain, do I have your permission to explain your final injury?" Jordan's voice came out quiet. "If you must, ma'am." 8 months ago, Captain Reeves's team was conducting a vehicle interdiction outside Mosul. An IED detonated under the lead vehicle. She was driving. Hendricks paused. Let that sink in. She took fragmentation wounds to her back and shoulder, second- and third-degree burns to her left side when the fuel tank ignited. Someone in the small group inhaled sharply. Nakamura had tears running down her face. Captain Reeves pulled 2 teammates from the burning vehicle while taking enemy fire. 1 survived. 3 others in the trail vehicle were killed by a secondary explosion while she rendered aid. Hendricks's voice remained steady, but her eyes showed emotion now. Sergeant First Class Rivera is alive today because of her. Staff Sergeants Thompson, Martinez, and Kowalski are buried in Arlington because she couldn't save everyone. Jordan's composure cracked. Her hand went to her face. Wiped at her eyes quickly, angry at herself for showing emotion. Hendricks continued. Captain Reeves spent 4 months at Walter Reed Medical Center. Spinal fusion surgery, skin grafts, physical therapy. The medical board retired her against her wishes. PTSD diagnosis. Permanent disability rating of 30%. Drake stepped forward, his voice thick. "Ma'am, I need to say something." Hendricks nodded permission. "I was with the quick reaction force that responded to that IED strike. I was the medical team leader." Drake looked at Jordan. "Ma'am, when we arrived, you were doing CPR on Rivera with your own back full of shrapnel, refusing medevac until he was stabilized. You coded twice in the helicopter. We lost you for 90 seconds. His voice broke. "Don't you dare say you failed anyone." Jordan stared at him, recognition flooding her features. "You were the medic. You told me Rivera would make it." "Yes, ma'am, and I kept my word. He's at Bay MC, walking again. Because of you." Torres stepped forward. "I was there too, Captain. You don't remember me, but I was on the gun truck. I saw what you did. You're the reason Rivera's 3 kids still have a father." Jordan's face crumpled. She pressed both hands to her eyes, shoulders shaking. 3 months of suppressed grief pouring out in front of 15 witnesses. Hendricks gave her 30 seconds, then spoke gently. "Captain, I knew your father, Major Daniel Reeves, Delta Force. Killed in action, Helmand Province, 2008. Jordan nodded without speaking. Couldn't speak. "I read the after-action report from your final mission. You saved your teammate's life. The ones who died, that wasn't your fault. With respect, ma'am, it feels like it was." Jordan's voice came out choked. "I know it does. I've been where you are. Lost soldiers under my command. It never stops hurting. But feeling responsible doesn't make you responsible." Hendricks called the dismissed personnel back. All personnel returned to formation. The crowd returned, confused, sensing something massive had shifted. 80 people standing in absolute silence. Hendricks addressed them. "Let me be absolutely clear. The woman you've been watching, and in some cases mocking, is Captain Jordan Reeves, decorated Delta Force operator, combat veteran, Silver Star recipient. She has done things in service of this country that I cannot discuss, in places I cannot name, against enemies you'll never hear about." Audible gasps. Someone dropped their phone. The livestream viewers exploded, comments scrolling faster than anyone could read. She was humiliated today by soldiers who aren't fit to shine her boots. Hendricks's gaze swept the crowd, landed on Voss. "Captain Reeves, would you please face this formation?" Jordan turned, still wearing her custodial uniform, gray t-shirt stained with solvent and sweat, civilian pants, looking nothing like a decorated war hero and everything like exactly that. "All officers and NCOs present arms." 15 hands rose in salute to a woman in janitor clothes. Jordan's hand came up automatically, returning the salute with crisp precision that spoke of thousands of repetitions. Voss stood frozen, his career crumbling in real time. Finally, he approached Jordan. "Captain, I sincerely apologize. If I had realized who you were—" Jordan's eyes were ice. "You didn't apologize when you thought I was just a janitor. You apologize now because of my rank. That tells me everything about your character, sir." Voss had no response. His mouth worked silently. Holloway stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. The things I said, the way I treated you." "You assaulted me, Captain. You knocked over my equipment. You challenged me to fight. And you used your rank to intimidate someone you thought was powerless." Jordan's voice was flat. "Sorry doesn't fix that." McCrae didn't approach, just stood at attention, staring at the ground, face burning with shame. Hendricks spoke again. "Captain, help me understand. Why facilities maintenance? Why hide?" Jordan took a breath. When she spoke, her voice cracked with honesty. "Because when I wear the uniform, man, people expect me to be her, the operator, the hero. And I don't feel like her anymore." She gestured at herself. "I feel like broken equipment. I took this job because I needed to be around the military without being part of it, to remember who I was while I figure out who I am now. And because my therapist said I needed structure and routine. Raw vulnerability that stunned everyone. The teammate you saved, Rivera, he's walking. His kids still have a father. That's because of you. But Thompson, Martinez, and Kowalski aren't walking anywhere, ma'am." Jordan's voice broke completely. "They're in Arlington. I dream about it every night. I hear Thompson screaming. I smell Martinez burning. I see Kowalski's face when the second blast hit." Tears streamed down her face now. "So yes, I hid, because I can't carry the weight of being Captain Reeves and also carry the weight of failing them." Hendricks put her hand on Jordan's shoulder. "You didn't fail anyone, Captain. It wasn't enough. It never feels like it is, but Rivera is alive. That's real. The ghosts are real too, but so is the good you did." Hendricks's voice hardened as she turned back to Voss. "Colonel, you're relieved of your current duties pending an investigation into conduct unbecoming an officer. You'll report to my office at 1400 hours with your legal counsel." Voss's face went from gray to white. "General, surely we can—" "Are you arguing with me, Colonel?" "No, ma'am." His voice barely audible. Hendricks turned to Holloway. "Captain, you're reassigned to administrative duties effective immediately. I'll decide later if you deserve to keep wearing that Ranger tab. Dismissed." Holloway saluted, departed with his head down, the confident swagger completely gone. McCrae stood rigid, waiting for judgment. Hendricks studied him. "Lieutenant, you're young. You followed terrible leadership. That's a reason, not an excuse." She paused. "You'll write a formal apology to Captain Reeves. You'll complete 40 hours of dignity and respect training, and you won't be considered for promotion for 1 year. Consider this your only warning. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am." McCrae's relief was palpable. The formation dispersed slowly, personnel filtering away in stunned silence, processing what they'd witnessed. The live stream had reached 12,000 viewers. Comments ranged from outrage at Voss to demands for Jordan's story to be shared everywhere. Drake approached Jordan after the official proceedings ended. "Ma'am, I should have intervened earlier. I knew something was wrong. I failed you as a senior NCO." Jordan shook her head. "You tried, Sergeant. Voss shut you down. That's on him, not you." Drake's voice was thick with emotion. "Still, I'm sorry. And for what it's worth, Watching you shoot today reminded me why I love this job. You're still one of the best I've ever seen." A small smile crossed Jordan's face, the first genuine smile in months. "Feels good to hear that. Thank you." Torres joined them. "Ma'am, if you ever want to come back as an instructor, we'd be honored to have you." "I'm not ready for that yet, Sergeant, but maybe someday." Holloway returned during a break in the chaos, found Jordan near the equipment shed. She was organizing, cleaning supplies, falling back into routine. He approached slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. "Captain, I know my apology doesn't matter, but I need to say it anyway." Jordan set down the supplies, faced him. "Then say it." Holloway's voice came out raw. "I treated you like garbage because I was insecure. I've never deployed. I wear this tab, but I've never done anything that mattered. You intimidated me before I even knew who you were because you moved like you belonged there, and I don't feel like I do." Jordan studied him for a long moment. "You want honest feedback, Captain?" "Yes, ma'am." "You have potential. You're strong, you can shoot, you understand tactics, but you're a coward who punches down to feel big. That will get soldiers killed." She paused. "Fix that before you deploy, or don't go." Holloway absorbed that like a physical blow. "How do I fix it?" "Lead from the front. Protect people weaker than you instead of targeting them. And ask yourself every day, am I the officer my soldiers deserve?" Jordan's voice softened slightly. "You have time to become better. Use it." Holloway extended his hand. Jordan shook it. "Don't let me hear about you bullying anyone again." "You won't, ma'am, I promise." That evening, Drake organized an impromptu gathering at the Special Forces Memorial on base. 50 operators, instructors, veterans present. Not an official ceremony, just soldiers showing respect to one of their own. Drake handed Jordan a unit coin from 1st SFODD, rare, meaningful, the kind of thing that wasn't given lightly. "We wanted you to know you're still one of us, ma'am. Once a quiet professional, always a quiet professional." Jordan tried not to cry holding the coin. "I don't deserve this." Multiple voices responded. "Yes, you do." Nakamura approached hesitantly. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" "Sure, Specialist." Jordan had learned her correct rank. "I'm the only woman in my SFQC class. The guys don't say it, but I feel them wondering if I belong. Today, watching you, I realized something." "What's that?" Nakamura's voice was firm. "They're not wondering if I'm good enough. They're hoping I'm not better than them. Just like Voss hoped you were nobody, because if you were somebody, it meant he was less." Jordan smiled. "That's very perceptive. Will you train me sometime? I want to learn from you." "No, you don't." "You don't want to be like me." Jordan's voice was gentle. "You want to be like you, but I'll help you get there." Several SFQC candidates who'd laughed earlier approached as a group. Their phones were off, no cameras, just shame and the need to make it right. The lead candidate spoke. "Ma'am, we were out of line. We filmed you to mock you. We're deleting the videos." "Don't delete them," Jordan said. Confusion crossed their faces. "Keep them. Watch them when you think you know someone's story. Remember that you don't know anything about anyone until you walk in their boots." Another candidate asked quietly, "Why were you really here, ma'am? Cleaning floors?" Jordan considered the question. "Because my therapist said structure helps with PTSD, and because I missed being around this." She gestured at the base. "The mission, the people, the purpose. I just needed to be near it, even if I can't do it anymore." "Can't, ma'am. You just outshot every instructor here. Shooting is the easy part. The hard part is living with what you shoot." 3 days later, Jordan was called to Hendrix's office. The general's workspace was sparse, functional, photos of soldiers she'd led, memorial bracelets for those who hadn't come home. "Captain, Colonel Voss has been reassigned to a logistics position at Fort Polk. He received a general officer memorandum of reprimand. It's career-ending. He'll be allowed to retire at his current rank instead of facing court-martial, but he'll never command again. Jordan processed this. That seems harsh, ma'am. Hendricks raised an eyebrow. You're defending him? No, ma'am, but I've been thinking about what broke me. It wasn't the IED. It was losing my team and feeling like I should have prevented it. Voss's career is over because he was cruel to me. I just want to make sure that's proportionate. This wasn't his first incident. Hendricks pulled up a file. There were 3 other complaints from personnel he'd harassed. 2 female contractors, 1 enlisted Marine. Yours was just the one that couldn't be swept under the rug. You didn't end his career, Captain. He did. Jordan nodded slowly. Then I don't feel bad. Good, because you shouldn't. Hendricks leaned back. I owe you an explanation. Your therapist contacted me after you were released from Walter Reed. She said you needed purpose, but couldn't handle operationals. Stress. I pulled strings to get you this job. Jordan's eyes widened. You've been watching over me? Your father saved my life in Kandahar, 2007. Took rounds meant for me. I owed him, and I owed you. Hendricks's voice carried regret. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from Voss. You couldn't have known, ma'am. I should have checked on you more often. I failed you there. They stood, saluted each other. Mutual respect between warriors who'd both carried impossible weight. Jordan returned to her facilities supervisor. He looked up from paperwork nervously. So, you're Delta Force? Was, not anymore. Do you want to quit? I'd understand if… No, I need this job. I like the work. It's simple. It makes sense. Jordan's voice was quiet. No one dies if I miss a spot on the floor. Her supervisor smiled with relief. Fair enough, but maybe avoid the shooting ranges for a while. Seems to cause problems. Jordan laughed. Actually laughed. The sound foreign in her own ears. Deal. McRae found her in the parking lot that evening. He carried an envelope. Ma'am, my apology letter. And I wanted to give it to you in person. Jordan read it. 3 pages. Specific, honest, taking full accountability without excuses. Thank you, Lieutenant. This takes courage. McRae hesitated. I voted against you once, ma'am. In 2016, there was a debate at West Point about women in special operations. I argued against it, said women weren't physically capable. He looked ashamed. Today, you proved I was an idiot. I'm one person, Lieutenant. I don't represent all women. Some women can do this. Some can't. Same as men. Still, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Then be better. That's all any of us can do. 2 weeks passed. Jordan continued her maintenance work, but the dynamic had shifted completely. Soldiers greeted her in hallways with respect that bordered on reverence. Morning, ma'am. She corrected them every time. I'm not active duty. Jordan is fine. They kept doing it anyway. The base had learned her story, not from official channels, but from the 12,000 people who'd watched the live stream, from the candidates who'd witnessed everything, from the instructors who'd seen her shoot. The janitor who was Delta Force became legend, whispered in barracks and mess halls. Hendricks summoned her again. Jordan entered the office expecting another administrative issue. Instead, she found the general holding a file folder. Captain, I have a request, not an order, a request. Jordan sat. I'm listening, ma'am. SFQC needs a guest instructor for their resilience and mental health training, someone who's been through combat and came out the other side, someone who understands that being broken doesn't mean being finished. Hendricks set the folder down. I want you to talk to candidates about what comes after the mission, about PTSD, about survival in a different kind of war. Jordan was quiet for a moment. You want me to talk to operators about being weak. I want you to talk to them about being human in an inhuman profession. Will you consider it? Can I keep my maintenance job? Yes, this would be 2 hours a week. You'd maintain civilian status, no uniform required. Jordan nodded slowly. Then yes, ma'am, I'll try. Her first session was 3 days later, 40 SFQC candidates in a classroom. Jordan stood before them wearing her maintenance uniform, not trying to be impressive, just being honest. My name is Jordan. I'm a janitor here. I'm also a combat veteran with 12 years in special operations, and I have PTSD. She paused. Today, we're going to talk about why admitting that doesn't make you weak. One candidate raised his hand. Ma'am, we saw the videos. You're a legend. How can someone like you have PTSD? Jordan's answer was simple, direct. Because PTSD doesn't care about your tab or your reputation. It cares about trauma, and war is traumatic, no matter how tough you are. She spoke for 90 minutes, about Thompson's last words, about Martinez burning, about Kowalski's face, about the nightmares at 0300 hours that made her afraid to sleep, about survivor's guilt that felt like drowning in open air, about the day she realized asking for help wasn't weakness, it was survival. Several candidates were crying by the end. One approached after. Ma'am, my dad was in Ramadi. He never talked about it. Killed himself when I was 16. If he'd heard this, maybe. Jordan put her hand on his shoulder. Maybe, but you heard it. You can be different. You can ask for help when you need it. That's how you honor him. 6 weeks after the incident, Nakamura graduated the SFQC selection phase, top of her class. 57 started, 21 finished. She was the first woman and in her cycle to pass. She found Jordan cleaning windows outside the headquarters building. Ma'am, I passed. I'm going to the qualification course. Jordan smiled. I knew you would. I used your technique. Every time someone doubted me, I imagined you standing there cleaning that floor while they mocked you, and I remembered you didn't need their permission to be excellent. That's the secret, specialist. You never need anyone's permission to be who you are. Will you be at my graduation? If you want me there. I do, ma'am, very much. Drake found Hendricks in her office one afternoon. General, permission to speak freely? Granted, Sergeant. What Captain Reeves is doing now is more important than anything she did in Delta. Hendricks looked up from paperwork. Explain. In Delta, she saved 2 lives directly. Here, she's saving dozens by teaching them it's okay to struggle. She's preventing suicides by making mental health normal. That's a different kind of heroism. Drake's voice was firm. I'm putting her in for a meritorious service medal for her instructor work. She won't want it, Sergeant. I know, ma'am. She's getting it anyway. At 0300 hours, Jordan woke from the nightmare. Same one. Explosion. Screaming. Thompson's face melting. Martinez silent because his chest was gone. Kowalski reaching for her as the secondary blast hit. But this time, instead of lying awake in panic, she used the techniques from therapy. Grounding exercises. Breathing. She called Rivera. It's Jordan. Sorry for calling late. Having a bad night. Rivera's voice was alert immediately. I got you. Talk to me. They talked for 20 minutes. About the mission, about the survivors, about the weight of staying alive when others didn't. Does it ever stop? Jordan asked. The dreams? No, ma'am, but they hurt less. And you saved my life. My daughter turned 6 last week. She drew you a picture. It's a superhero. His voice was thick. You're her hero. That's real. The ghosts are real too, but so is the good. Jordan didn't sleep after, but she didn't spiral either. Progress wasn't linear, but it was progress. 6 months after the range incident, Jordan was back cleaning the complex. Her choice. She found the work meditative, repetitive motion that quieted the chaos in her head. A new colonel arrived for inspection, Colonel Sarah Winters. 51 years old, 28 years in service, the new Special Operations Training Commander. Winters spotted Jordan organizing ammunition. Excuse me, are you Jordan Reeves? Yes, ma'am. I heard about what happened with Voss. I want you to know that behavior won't happen under my command. Winters' voice was firm. I also heard you're teaching resilience classes. I'd like to expand that program. Would you be willing to teach more often? Jordan hesitated. I'm not qualified, ma'am. I'm just someone who survived. That's exactly what qualifies you. Think about it. Jordan saw Voss one afternoon in the base PX. He wore logistics branch insignia now. No combat patch. No command authority. Just another staff officer pushing papers until retirement. He saw her, froze, started to walk away. Colonel Voss. He stopped, turned slowly. Captain Reeves, I don't expect you to. I don't forgive you. Jordan's voice was level. But I don't hate you either. You were cruel. You got caught. You're paying for it. That's justice. For what it's worth, I am sorry. It's worth something. Not everything, but something. She walked away. Not friends, not enemies. Just two people who'd collided and moved on. Jordan's final training session of the semester addressed leadership. Combined class of officers and NCOs. Topic, dignity and respect. When Colonel Voss mocked me, he thought I was powerless. But I was never powerless. I just wasn't in a position where I felt safe using power. She paused. The test of your character isn't how you treat people who can help you. It's how you treat people who can't fight back. The janitor, the private, the contractor. If the only reason you respect someone is their rank, you don't have respect. You have fear. And fear isn't leadership. Every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Treat them like it. The room absorbed her words in silence. Captains and sergeants major learning from a woman in maintenance clothes. Rank disappeared in the face of truth. Winters approached after class. Captain, I'm creating a formal instructor position, full-time, GS-12 civilian pay scale, teaching leadership and resilience to all SOCOM candidates rotating through Fort Bragg. That's a big change from cleaning floors, ma'am. You're already doing the work. I'm just making it official. And you'd report directly to me. No more officers like Voss in your chain. Jordan considered. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. Jordan visited Arlington on a cold November morning. 3 graves, side by side. Thompson, Martinez, Kowalski. She placed flowers at each. I'm still here, still fighting, just a different fight now. She touched Thompson's headstone. I hope that's okay. I hope you'd be proud. Some days are harder than others, but I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. She saluted, stood in silence for 10 minutes, then walked away. The weight still there, always there. But maybe, possibly, starting to feel slightly lighter. Back at Fort Bragg, early morning, Jordan ran the obstacle course. By choice, for herself. Her back screamed with every movement, hardware grinding. But she pushed through, finished, checked her time. Not fast by operator standards, but respectable. Drake watched from a distance, nodded approval. Jordan saw him. You timing me, Sergeant? Just making sure you're okay, ma'am. I'm getting there. That's all any of us can do. Jordan walked across base at sunset. Maintenance uniform on, but her posture had changed. The limp was gone. She carried herself like an operator again, not hiding anymore. She stopped to help a young private who dropped papers in the wind. Gathered them, handed them back. Thank you, ma'am. No problem. Have a good evening. She continued walking. The sun painted Fort Bragg in gold and shadow. Soldiers heading to chow halls. Vehicles moving between training areas. The rhythm of military life she'd missed more than she'd admitted. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hendricks. Thought about the instructor position? Jordan typed back. Yes, ma'am. My answer is yes. 3 dots appeared. Then, outstanding. Welcome back, Captain. On your terms this time. Jordan pocketed her phone, smiled. For the first time in 8 months, she felt something close to peace. Not happiness, not yet, but the possibility of it. The knowledge that broken things could be repaired, that scars could heal, even if they never disappeared. She'd survived the IED, survived Walter Reed, survived 3 months of humiliation. And she'd keep surviving, keep fighting, keep teaching others that strength included asking for help. Heroism wasn't just what you did in combat, it was who you chose to be after.